and welcome back to the book club by Alternative. This month's book which we read was Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging by Sebastian Junger. We have a special guest with us today, so it's not just me and Aaron. We also have a dear friend, Mitz. Hello, Mitz.
Hi, Mitz.
Hi, good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. So Mitz has joined us today for our alternative journey. He's read along Tribe with us and jumped on the review that we're going to give today. So jumping straight into it, I mean, the book's called Tribe, so it says sort of what it's about. I thought it was written very well in terms of, it was a short book, a very, very short book. I didn't expect it to be as short as it was, but I felt it was very concise and to the point. He didn't waffle, and I didn't really lose focus throughout the book. I was quite focused the whole way through it. And I feel like the only reason why it was that well written was because it actually seemed like it came from a place in his heart. A lot of it's about war, and obviously Sebastian has been in war in the past, and he resonated a lot with the things he was saying, and you could tell he's actually stepped back and had a good long think about society and where there's a massive problem with veterans that come back from war and how they don't fit into society. So I felt it was very real, and yeah, concise was definitely something which I like in a book. I don't like waffle in a book. I don't mind if a book's too long, as long as there's not a lot of waffle in it. Definitely in non-fiction. What did you guys think about it?
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with what you said. I did feel like it came from a place of like Sebastian's experience. He was a journalist. He was a war journalist, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, when I was reading it, I found it was very war focused, which is understandable coming from him. Before I read the book, I didn't really know much about Sebastian. So I sort of had different expectations for the book. I didn't think it'd be so heavily focused on war. But obviously it makes sense why it is. And I really like the start of the book as well, where he's talking about Native Americans and how they kidnapped Europeans, and when those Europeans were then rescued, a lot of them decided to stay within the tribes that kidnapped them, which I thought, I never knew, like, they sort of wanted to do that, and it got me thinking there must be some reason as to why their civilization is more attractive than what the Western civilization has to offer. I just found that sort of an interesting fact.
Yeah, on that, what I found from it was, I don't know if you actually mentioned this in the book, but what I thought about was, is it Western civilization that doesn't offer something, or is it what Western civilization offers isn't attractive enough? And instead of them being attracted to the other side, they're seeing it more as an escape to get away from the Western culture?
Well, the feeling I sort of got from the book as a whole is that Western civilization isn't offering that community feel anymore. It's sort of treating everybody's an individual, and it's sort of like a dog-eat-dog world, and everyone's out for themselves. And that's the reason why these Europeans wanted to stay in those tribes, because they had that collective community.
Yeah, especially if you think about it back then as well, when they essentially went to America, that's when all this started happening, right? When they were trying to colonize that part of the world. It must have been a rough environment for the basically Englishmen to go over there, whoever went and colonize that place. It must have been such a rough environment for them to try and develop and grow, that each person there must have found it tough in order to survive. And then when they went towards the tribes, they found like a sense of family in a way. And I guess that's probably something that they'd be searching for as well.
Yeah, definitely, because it does even highlight in the book, and I'm sure you mentioned it on maybe the last podcast, because I think you was some way through the book, about how everyone in Western society, or in the sort of the developed world are individual. They're not. They don't have any community whatsoever. Which the book I thought touches on and explains and gives his reasons, but it didn't go into as much detail as I was sort of hoping for within the Western world.
Yeah, that's where I sort of thought the book lacks a little bit, in the sense it doesn't really go into much on the actual problem in the Western world. It talks a lot about how people like come together in times of war and focuses a lot on that, but I felt like it just didn't sort of explain the issues in West society and how they can be fixed. Maybe it doesn't have the answers to these questions. The hard questions to answer.
Yeah, I don't think that was the point of the book, was it? For him to state like, this is what we need to do. Da, 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 da. It's more of the concept of, this is what it was then. This is what we are doing now. You kind of need to bridge that gap, saying like, maybe is your life like this, or can you see that in your world, and just see how that tribal culture can probably fit in, or how it would have been better if it was like that. I don't think his point of the book was to state rules which we need to change or abide by. I think it was more thought provoking.
I wouldn't say I was expecting actual rules from him, but maybe just throw some ideas out there from what he's sort of experienced and what he's learned, and sort of what his thinking is on how the sort of gap can be bridged.
Just on that point,
just his perspective on it.
Just stating what you said there, his stories. I think that's one thing I liked about the book, that it wasn't just him getting other people's ideas and putting it into one place. It was him sharing his own experiences and linking it in there as well. I think if that wasn't there, it might have been a bit more of a less interesting read, I'd say.
Yeah, and on Mix's point there about it's his point of view. I get that, looking back and obviously discussing it now, I get why he didn't go into that much depth. Whilst I was reading it, I was craving more depth in certain parts. But that's me as a person. He can only write about what he knows, and we've obviously had it from the podcast. We can only speak about what we know. So for him to go politically and say, you need to fix this in the Western world, or this needs to be fixed, he, like he said, doesn't have the answers, so he can't preach something which he doesn't know inside and out. But what he's done is he's made a start by saying, this is everything I know. There is a problem. Look at every single reason why I can back up the fact that there is a problem from what I've learned, and then to say it's up to someone else to make book two, probably.
I think it was, like I said before, I think it's for him to maybe start the conversation, and this is where people like us have these ideas that we can talk about, and we can say whether this is right and where this is wrong.
Yeah, he's sort of built the foundations for people to build upon from his experiences and his point of view, like at a basic stage, for them people to sort of build it into society today without offering his point of view on it. People who are a little bit more well-rounded in sort of the political scene understand society a little bit more than, like modern society, a little bit more than what he's sort of, he doesn't have the answers to our questions, but he's hoping somebody will read this book and try and figure out the answer to the question.
Yeah, like we're doing now. It's an ideal book, I think, for a book club for a reason. As a book to read and gain extra knowledge in, it's probably not that book, but a book to read and gain awareness of a subject is probably perfect. But
the one thing I got from this book was a better understanding of PTSD, because to me, PTSD is I just think war straight away. This maybe gave a different perspective on it, and a bit more information in general just about PTSD, because honestly, I didn't have much clue about it at all. Like, you just see it from movies, basically, like this guy goes to war or a woman goes to war and they come back and they have issues, and you just assume that is from the war and that's it. That's all I knew about it, to be honest.
That, like, I was the same. I didn't really know much about PTSD, just from I remember it in Peaky Blinders, like the main character had PTSD from World War One, and he sort of cured it with smoking opium. But he sort of went into saying how they struggled to fit back into society, and how some societies. That's when he relates back to Native Americans in one of the sections when he's talking about PTSD, and when some of the tribes went out to war, some of the soldiers, they came back and had to do certain cultural ceremony.
Cleansing.
Yeah,
Cleansing it was, wasn't it?
yeah, and that sort of helped them get back into normal everyday life.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he was saying one of the tribes back then, they did it as a whole community. So if one person went to war or a group of them went to war, when they came back, the whole community had to do the cleansing together or whatever it was.
Yeah, what did he mention? He said when someone goes away to go and fight in a war, when they come back to their community where they still need to hunt, they still need to fish, they still need to be a member of that community, rather than in modern day when you come back from war, you just sort of chucked in and said, "Okay, you're finished with war now."
Yeah, I mean now people struggle to even get a job after leaving the army, don't they? Or when they come back from their whatever it was in the war in Afghanistan or whatever it was like that.
I think it's a bigger problem in America because you see a lot of veterans that just left to be homeless.
Yeah, a lot of the homeless in America are veterans, aren't they?
Yeah.
And then what he says, it's not just about the ones that were actually in combat. So it shows that it's more the PTSD that you get from it is more than just seeing someone's legs get blown off. It's actually, the fact that you've been side by side with your brothers in arms. You wait. Well, he said that he could reach out and he could feel someone 3 feet away or whatever.
Yeah, when he's sleeping.
Yeah. So coming back to civilization in the West, and no one sleeps together. You hardly even. You could go a full day without even seeing anyone, really.
Yeah, he states that, doesn't he? That in today's society, you can spend your whole time by yourself. You can go out, not know anyone, but be surrounded by thousands of people and still be the loneliest person there.
And it sort of brings us back to what we were saying in the pod the other day, Cam. Like today, like there's so many people around us, but we're so isolated from everything and everyone. Like, I'll be honest with you, I've lived in this flat for just about a year this week, and I don't even know my neighbours, and I barely even see them, to be honest with you. But they live like right next door to me.
Yeah, and then with you being in London, it's a prime example of having that many people around you, but yet not knowing that many people. It's weird.
Yeah, and even when you speak to someone, like just a stranger, they just look at you like, "What the hell?" But the other day I was on the tube, and this guy had, do you know those blue light glasses on, the like yellow tinted glasses, and he was wearing it. I was like, "Oh, those blue light glasses." He's like, "Yeah, something like that," and then just turned his head and didn't want to like engage with me. And then the group I was in, they were all laughing at me, like saying, "Oh, like you can tell you're from up north. No one speaks to each other on the tube down here."
I feel like COVID's made this whole isolation thing a lot worse because obviously loads of people start working from home now. Like for me, for instance, I literally wake up, go to the computer, do my day's work, and then it's quite rare. Sometimes I don't even go out in the evenings. Then it's because in this one little space for the whole day, and then it just carries on for the next day, next day, next day. Like you don't tend to. The way that society is now, you don't need to meet anyone to do anything. Like you can make your living like we're doing working from home. And then the only reason you go out is literally to go meet people for social events, but then you go meet the same people. It's not like you go meet anyone new. So the fact that if you want to try, like you said, like you can go outside, see 1,000 people, but you don't know anyone at all. I feel like that is so much worse after COVID.
Yeah, COVID's definitely sped up a lot of. Well, everyone's got even worse anxieties, even worse depression, and it all comes from. I think a lot of it stems from this lack of community or lack of what his title of his book was, the belongingness, lack of belonging to any sort of tribe. Just whilst we're on this subject, I'm going to read a quote out from his book because I think it's quite a powerful one. Modern society has perfected the art of making people not feel necessary. So the way I look at modern society, I look at it as modern society is the internet. Like, we're in the internet age. Society has been sort of taken over by the internet. And if you look at the past, before the internet, before technology as we know it today, they had less technology, they had less wealth, and that's wealth as in less stuff, less junk that they don't need, because why would they waste the time on junk when they can go and hunt a mammoth, for example, and it'll feed them in their tribe for weeks. They've got less work to do because I think he states in the book something like, is it 12 hours? They only work 12 hours. On average, they'll work 12 hours in a week, and that'll be enough for them to live off. Obviously, everyone within the tribe will do different work, but on average, if they're all working 12 hours a week, they've got so much more time to talk to the tribe, to sort of evolve things, make things better, make things easier for themselves. And it's inevitable that we've got to the stage that we're at because of the way humans are. But because we now have technology, our community is no longer our tribe of 12, 15 people. Our community now is everyone in the whole fucking world because we're so connected to everyone. But it's unnatural for us to have a community that big. There's no way we can have a community that big. If we're looking at people on social media and we've never met the person before and we see, oh, that guy's got a Ferrari, you naturally will think, well, why the fuck have I not got a Ferrari? And what am I doing wrong? That's because back when you had a community of 12 to 15 people, if someone has let's say a Ferrari, but there's only 10 or 12 to 15 of you, then you think, like, I'm part of this community, so realistically you won't be thinking, why has he got one and I don't? You'll have one as well because that will be part of the community. So the problem is now we are seeing everyone, what everyone has, and automatically thinking, shit, like, why is that not happening to me? And that's what's creating so much anxiety and what's adding to so much anxiety and so much depression.
Well, one thing about that, you're saying, like, I know it was a metaphor, like you're saying that they got a Ferrari, but back then it wouldn't have been one person getting something large. That whatever resource they had, they'd be sharing out to the group. So it wouldn't be one person doing better than the others, and then everybody else will get that as well. It's more the fact that if one person gathered a lot of one resource, it'd obviously just be shared out to everybody else in that community.
Yeah, for example, if someone cooks a massive pot of food, that's not just for them to keep and put in the fridge and have the next day. That's for everyone to eat that day.
I think he even states in the book that if there was a person in the tribe or community hoarding a resource, they'd be punished for it because they weren't sharing to the group. Obviously, they weren't benefiting anyone else. It was just them.
Yeah, it's not equal.
Yeah, exactly. And another thing that you're saying about wealth as well. I believe one thing he says in the book is that wealth back then is whatever you could carry on your back because they were nomadic. Whereas now we're all stuck in one place and we just want to just get more and more and more. But obviously back then
We're hoarders
it
now.
was, yeah, exactly.
Just trying to accumulate as much as we can.
Exactly. I
It's
think
like, why do people actually need 8 watches? You just need, if you need to tell the time, you need 1 watch. Why do you have to have 8 watches that cost 10 to 15 grand each? Realistically, you just need the 1 watch to tell the time. And why do people need 12 car garages? You just need 1 car to get from A to B.
that's like the argument of wants and needs, isn't it? Like, you want all the stuff, do you need it?
No, we don't need it, but because just the way society's pushed us is we feel like we need all this stuff to keep up with the rest of the community, but the rest of the community is now everyone.
What do you guys think the sort of fix is then, like from our perspectives?
Well, our main problem is that we have a government. And that's basically the whole country, isn't it? So that basically means our community is our country. And like you said, it's just way too big. You can't have that sense of belonging in a group of 60 million people or whatever it is now. 70, I don't know. Whereas back then it was 30 to 50 or 100 people. And you knew every single person in that community. Whereas here, it's too many people.
Yeah, because then it turns into this dirty, greedy, capitalist sort of situation that
Or communist situation.
Either way, it's going to be a dirty, greedy, either power
Either
hungry.
way, there's a power. Someone's going to be power hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But it feels like a lot of things that have been put in place or are being put in place is to just, I don't know. But like, for example, with all this, what do you call it? Gender movement. I don't know what we're actually calling it nowadays from what it was last week. But that's like some people, it's something so, I'm just going to say it bluntly, it's something so weird that people are clinging on to because they've got nothing to, there's no options for any sense of community out there, clearly, or else they won't be clinging on to something so, that doesn't progress society in any way.
This is where I kind of think where religion played a role in the past is where it sort of gave people a sense of belonging and a sense of community. Like if I was a Christian and you was a Christian and we never met each other, but we both saw each other in a church, we'll talk to each other, and then you've got that community there. And straight away you've got that thing that you both believe in and live for. Where
something common, isn't it?
Yeah, something in common, something that you both believe in together, and you both got the same values that religion holds. Whereas now, like, religion sort of dying out, it's people are feeling maybe like a little bit lost, so they're moving in these like weird gender progressive ways where they're sort of finding community there. And I think community can be anything really, anything that a group of people have in common and they work towards, and it's a positive influence. Whether it's positive or negative, it's still community, right? But if community can be made out of anything. So like we're doing this alternative pod and we're hoping to build a community through an alternative with people who have like open minds and like to learn and better themselves. So building a sense of community there sort of brings people together and moving in the right direction or moving in a similar direction.
I think it is. I think you're right there, definitely. But in his book, I think his sense of belonging was more of an everyday life type of aspect rather than something like a hobby, isn't it? Like if you have a hobby, you do what you said. Like it's not every single day, but when you do that hobby, you have a community there.
Like a football club, for example.
Yeah.
Whereas his is more, what he was talking about is probably more like a way to live, right?
Yeah, and he did mention one point in there about, I think he was talking about workforce, so I took it in a workforce sense, and he was talking about how it's so hierarchical. So people work for most of their life. Like you work 40 hours a week if you're like a standard 9-to-5er, and if you're in a corporate company, which most sort of people work in this hierarchical structure, you are actually never in control. So it's 40 hours a week. You're never in control of your life for 40 hours a week. And the worst thing about it, because after he said that, I properly had to think about it and how, because I don't agree with the hierarchical structure in corporates. And I actually had a proper long think on why I don't believe in that. And it's because you actually don't control your life. You're being told what to do. The person above you doesn't control their life because they're told by someone above them. And if you go all the way to the top of the chain, it's just some power, greedy, corporate, like, senseless, selfish person who has got into that role and is like, right now I can just control all of these people, these hundreds of thousands of people. And what's it going to do? They're all going to suck in all the money that they can, and who's it going to come to? It's going to come to me. And that's what it was like with, obviously, with, he talks a lot about the 2008 recession when all of the power greedy bankers just sucked up all the money. And I think, yeah, some people were getting million. The people at the lower end of it were getting £1,000,000 or dollar bonuses, and then as you go up and up the hierarchy, the bigger the bonuses, and they're happy because they're getting £1,000,000, but that or dollars even, but that $1,000,000 means nothing to the grand scheme of things when the guy up top has hundreds of thousands of millions, billions anyway. So you're not. I don't know. It's just a bit messed up.
Leading on from that, didn't he mention that that the people who caused the recession, essentially the bankers, that was such a devastating thing for the world as the whole community, I say community, that it caused more suicides in that period of time than any wars have done, or something like that, or what the Afghanistan war has done. And if somebody was to do that back then, they'd be punished for it. But these guys just haven't been punished at all, have they?
Not a single person, he said, has been charged.
Not a single person, yeah.
That's weird, isn't it? It's messed up.
We're talking about what he stated at the beginning about these sort of tribes way back when, and if someone hoards a little bit too much, then they'll probably get a death penalty by the rest of the tribe. And then,
yeah, exactly. It's a strange world we live in.
It's uncomfortable.
The fact that people can get away with something that absolutely ridiculous and still have a normal life is weird.
Yeah. Well,
and then you get people
on one hand losing the houses, losing the jobs, and then on the other hand, people getting millions of pounds in bonuses.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Aaron, you raised the question, like, how can we fix it? What?
Yeah, that brings me back to a point where Mitz sort of linked it back to the book in everyday life. I was just putting that point out there to sort of see how it fits in, like, in society today, how it can be, the issue can be sort of as close as we can get to it. Because I know we can't really go back to living in tribes. There's way too many people for that now. But it brings me on something that you said afterwards, Cam, where you said about corporations and being in a hierarchy. And so I left my job like over a year ago, over a year and a half ago, and now I'm working freelance with a company, and everyone who works for that company is freelance, and it's sort of, he distributes the work out, and if you're not pulling your weight, he just won't send you to work. So, and I'll be honest, it's the happiest I've ever been in a working environment, because I felt like he's not my boss. Like, we're on the same level playing field. He just sends me the work over that he gets from clients. I get it done and send it off to the clients. And everyone in my team is on the same sort of, everyone's on exactly the same level, but I feel like I'm working with him and not for him. And it sort of got me thinking about something he mentioned in the book. If somebody in the tribe wasn't pulling the weight, then they sort of get told to leave the tribe.
Yeah, which in normal work, when I used to work, I used to be paid to come in at 9, leave at 5. And now I'm obviously self-employed freelance as well. Looking back on it, the work that I do now, I can do in a morning or a couple of hours in a day, but it'll take me a week to do it whilst I was working at 9 to 5 role. And it's not because I couldn't do it faster, it's because, well, what am I going to achieve by doing it any faster?
Yeah. All that would happen is,
yeah,
you'll still have to work 9 to 5 hours, and then you'll finish your work and you just be told to do more work.
Yeah. Whereas now I'll get paid for exactly the work I put in. So if I need more income, then I've got to work harder. And that's how, like you're saying, that's how tribes used to live. If you needed more resource, you have to go out and graft and cut down more trees or whatever they got up to. But I do think it's the key thing that I've taken from the book is too many people are independent now. Like it's not the way. I think he said. I forgot what the word was, but humans, they're not independent people. We're dependent on other people. We are group
Social.
social
So,
animals.
yeah, we've evolved to
Mm.
be a communal species, whereas now we're doing the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, and there's a shitload of introverts out there, and I don't even. I'm not read up on introvert and extrovert that much, but I can only take what I've gathered from just my social interactions with people. I don't think people are necessarily introverted. I think society makes people introverted by not accepting them into certain aspects of society or certain aspects of culture, and it makes them feel like they've got no belongingness. Because I feel like any introvert who you people would class as an introvert, put them in somewhere where they belong and where they feel a sense of belongingness, they'll be an extrovert real quick.
Yeah, like if you think about, I'm just trying to link it back to the tribe. Like if you pretend you're in a tribe, you'd know every single role in that tribe and you'd have knowledge on it. And you'd know what every single person's doing. So you can go out there and talk to whoever you wanted. I'm assuming. Now, there's so many different things about everyday life that is you're never going to know everything about everything. Are you? So if you go to someone and they're talking about a topic that you probably don't know much about, you're probably going to struggle to talk to them. And I think this is where the introvert aspect comes in because you don't have that knowledge to build a proper conversation with them.
Mm. It brings
Whereas
us
I,
back to that quote that modern society has perfected the art of making people feel not necessary.
And at that point, like, he talks a lot about war in this book and how it sort of brings people together. And it got me thinking about sort of the start of the pandemic, where there seemed to be sort of a sense of more of a sense of community, and everyone was like sort of caring a little bit more for each other at the start, especially. Like it got very divided towards the end, but in the beginning, it just felt like everyone was sort of coming together, like in solidarity a little bit. But when you said it make society these days makes people feel unnecessary. At that time, like before that, you would have thought about, say, a shelf stacker at Tesco. You would have just thought like it's not a necessary job. Like you're just stacking shelves at Tesco. But during the pandemic, he was like they're considered key workers. Whereas like a time of struggle where you saw like the most,
solidarity.
yeah, you saw a job where it was usually considered as a a dead end job. Like there's not really much going. Like there's nowhere really you could really go from that job to a job that was important for the sort of for society to still function.
Yeah, it was a vital role.
Yeah,
I think that goes back to his point of where he says like a point that he goes throughout the book, say where you need a catastrophe for the human, like for humans to get together and actually do something together. And COVID was one of them, really. Kind of proved his point, didn't it? Well, at least for the short term, anyway. Like you said, towards the end, it was a bit of a mess.
yeah, but I think that was a lot of politics involved with it at the end,
Yeah,
towards the end.
yeah.
Yeah, on that point about jobs, he says this, and we're going to read out another quote. Jobs that are directly observable. Am I saying that right?
Observable.
Observable. Jobs that are directly observable to the public, like construction, tend to be less respected and less well paid than jobs that happen behind closed doors, like real estate or finance. And yet, it is exactly these jobs that provide society's immediate physical needs. Construction workers are more important to everyday life than stockbrokers, and yet they are far lower down the social and financial ladder. So they get paid less, and like Aaron said then about someone who stacks shelves, that's a necessary person that's needed for, if you're looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, to eat some food. That food needs to be provided to you. But someone who works in being a stockbroker and just gambling, basically a gambling addict, they're seen as like, oh, yeah, he's a fucking wicked job. He's made it, but he's just pushing this independent, like people to become more independent because that's as independent as you get.
It kind of reiterates that from what he was saying about the recession and how that was caused. I mean, it kind of proves the whole point, doesn't it? That these bankers are paying ridiculous amounts to get away with so many things, yet it's the little guys that get shafted, really, isn't it?
The whole structure just sort of goes against our natural instincts as human beings.
It's like everything now is like the complete opposite of what he's saying that tribes were.
Mm.
That's what I kind of got from the book, in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like we're so far away right now from the situations he's sort of describing in the book.
Yeah,
Society is so far away from that at the moment.
but then he does reiterate that it's like the modern Western world. So there's still parts of the world where community is still a big thing. It's just, yeah, I think he was trying to state that like America, Europe, well, majority of Europe, the modern Western world, basically, that where we're so far from the community aspect of life.
Mm. It's even like the smaller things, like people eating the meals together in the evening, like families. Like in the Western world, that rarely happens now. People usually just eating on their own or not all sat together, just enjoying a meal with the whole family around them.
Yeah, like
Every
it'd be the
evening.
exact same house, but
Yeah.
in completely different rooms.
yeah. It's like eating's no longer a group thing anymore. It's like, oh, I need to quickly. I've got 15 minutes. I'm just going to go and quickly eat and then get back to the bullshit that you were doing before.
Yeah, like eating for the sake of eating.
Mm.
Mm.
That's what it's turned into.
And does he mention it at the beginning about how we've just detached ourselves from these tribal instincts that we had, so much so that we just indulge in overeating, over consuming. Just we've got all of this technology at the click of a button, and we can just consume so much information. No one actually stops to think ever. People hardly ever think because all your thoughts done for you. You're writing a document, you don't even need to spell it correctly because it just automatically corrects your spelling as you go. So no one really needs to stop and think about anything anymore.
There is no like real struggle in life these days. I think going back to the hierarchy of needs in the Western world, the hierarchy of needs are met so easily. There's no struggle. Well, especially the bottom one is met so easily. There's no actual struggle to get that. Whereas back in the ancient times, you had to actually work to get just the basics.
I believe he does state that, doesn't he? That in modern day life, there's very little hardship and struggle, like you said. I think he goes on to say that back then, if you wanted to prove yourself as an adult, or I think he was talking about men in that point, where they had to go to war or go do something to prove themselves. Now we don't have any of that at all. There's nothing that we have to do to show that we're adults. So we just go out into the world and everything's given to us relatively easily.
Mm. Yeah, everything's there. Everything's already been prepared for you. Um, and I don't. Well, we talked about capitalism with it, but communism. If you want to look at, for example, the book 1984, that was pretty much um, where we're headed to, and that sense of belongingness that was portrayed in that book, because obviously the main character Winston didn't have the sense of belongingness because he seen it for what it was, but we're that's the way we're headed, and it's just going to be very similar to what we're doing now anyway. if not, we're already there where we just sit on our own in our houses. Yes, we might have some family members in the house with us, but that's it. That's all you are gonna see for the rest of your time. Other people that you speak to, you're not gonna. There's not gonna be any bridge to opening a relationship with.
I mean, the way, like you said, the way we're going is that anyway. Because if I want to order some food, I don't need to go out and get it. I just get it delivered to the door. But sometimes, like if I need to do like grocery shopping, if I can't be bothered going out, just get it delivered. You don't need you don't need you don't need to go out to go see a movie anymore. Just stay in the house. And literally anything. You can do everything from your
Literally,
house.
never need to leave your house.
And we've talked about it on the podcast before. These we're gonna go to the global elites because these are the ones that are fucking shit up for us. These are the ones that are presenting convenience to us. Oh, it's so convenient. You can get Amazon Prime next day to your house. Oh, but I need it now. Okay, well, we'll do same day then. That's very convenient for you. Oh, well, you want hungry? Oh, Just Eat will come and fucking get it for you. Right. Oh, you want to watch TV? Netflix. So the whole series is on there. Watch it all today. They're disguising something as convenient when it's not. It's fucking immoral. It's kind of fucked up.
Yeah, everybody wants things instantaneously now, don't we? Nobody wants to wait for anything anymore. Even with adverts, like we were back in the day, we were used to watching adverts between shows. Now, if one ad comes up, like YouTube, for example, I get annoyed when there's one ad and then another ad straight after it for like
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Or even waiting that 5 seconds to press skip ad.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's why I got YouTube Premium.
That's what they want you to get. Because it's convenient, no ads. Pay here.
Literally the exact reason why you bought in it. Get rid of the adverts. Convenience.
One point that I read from the book, which something I didn't really think of, but I found quite interesting, was when he talks about gang shootings, and it got me thinking about gangs in America. And says gang shootings, as indiscriminative as they often are, still don't have the nihilistic intent of rampages. So he's talking about you've got gangbangers in America that shoot up people. It's not done in a depressive manner in the same way that the rampages of a kid shooting up a school is. A kid shooting up a school that's depression, anxiety filled. He's alone, he's independent, he's fully individual, and he feels like resentment against him because he doesn't fit or belong in anywhere. So he goes and shoots loads of people and kills them. But if you look at a gang shooting, yes, they still kill people, but they're doing it to sort of protect their tribe that they've got, whether it be like the Bloods or the Crips. That's their tribe. They've got a sense of belonging, so they're not necessarily depressed, even though they are as a bit political. But them sort of people are suppressed in a way in modern society. They're still like clinging together as a tribe to get through the shit that society pushes on them anyway. They push them into the neighborhood so they're all in one area. But,
Yeah, they've got like that common goal that they're fighting for.
yeah. Whether it
Before I read that, I would never have thought about gangs in that way at all.
Yeah.
No, you just thought they were all like crazy, going to shoot everyone up.
Yeah, like there's no. Well, obviously I knew there was meaning behind it, but to me it's just stupid.
Yeah,
Whereas he's put some type of meaning behind it, but yeah, never would have thought of it in that way at all.
yeah. He says rather they stay rooted in exceedingly strong sense of group loyalty, revenge, but bystanders sometimes get killed in the process.
So the moral of the book is, if you want to be happy, join a gang.
Gang alternative. Subscribe. I mean, yeah, the moral of the book is like join a community, but like when you ask that question, what's the answer? How does one join a community that they can actually get behind properly?
I think that's why there's so many movements now, isn't there, these days? I think people want a sense of belonging, but just don't know where to put their energy. And not in the sense where these movements are probably not the best thing to do, but like that's one way they're going to get a sense of belonging by going and doing these marches or whatever it is that they do. That's where they get a sense of belonging.
Yeah, it's like with the BLM movement. I don't know where I was listening to it. I think someone was talking about it, and that movement wouldn't have been as popular as it was unless it was at the time it was, because it was in COVID. Everyone was locked down. Everyone was feeling so isolated and alone. And then this big movement comes where, yeah, a catastrophe happened for it to happen, for it to the movement to sort of be born with George Floyd's death. So many people like they just felt stuck and isolated and didn't belong anywhere. They saw this come up on the news. Everyone was talking about it. They were like, right, fuck it, let's go. And it's all that built up sort of anger that led to that within
I
people.
don't know for me, did you think it was mostly just the Western world that was involved in that? Because obviously we're kind of biased to seeing that stuff from the Western world, but I didn't really see anything from like Asian countries or places like that. I don't know. Did you?
I think it is mainly Western world. But I know, like, from living in China, there's not many black people around, so they wouldn't have caused much out, and they're quite racist in China anyway. So, yeah, they probably like just thought, or whatever. Whereas the Western world is quite diverse, isn't it? Like,
It's like, for example, there's if you're looking at it from China's perspective, looking at the Western world, the BLM movement, they're probably looking at it thinking, "Oh shit, that's not good," or whatever they might think, and then crack on with their day-to-day lives. It's like the same way we look at child labor in them countries and think, "Oh fucking hell, that's not good," and then go and buy your iPhone. It's one of them. You're so far away from it, you don't even feel like it's in your world.
You're not part of it.
Yeah, it just feels like it doesn't actually happen because it's their sort of problem.
Yeah, it's not your doorstep. Well, it's not their doorstep.
Yeah, I guess it's
So don't
tribal
really pay
in a
any
sense
attention to it.
because we look at their tribe and think, "No, that's not good," and then just crack on with our day-to-day stuff to help our global elites.
Yeah.
I think though, like going back to what you're saying about BLM and everybody is sort of people are sort of lost for a sense of belonging. It sort of explains why the political spectrum is so polarized at the minute. Because if people latch onto one idea and another group of people latch onto that same idea, people aren't willing to sort of change their opinions on things because they've got a sense of belonging from a group of people who all have the same idea.
There was a statement in the book. I wrote it down. Yeah, it says people who speak with contempt for one another will probably not remain united for long. That just describes every single democratic country in the world right now. Like, if one person's saying this and the other people saying that, and then if they don't like that, they're never gonna see eye to eye on anything, really, are they?
It's just the disagreement after disagreement. And then do you think, so for example, you got the left and the right in Western society. Do you think that you're seeing that crumble as in there's more divides coming within? So for example, you had the left and then you had the right. They had whatever they believed in and they had whatever they believed in. But it's become so advanced now that the left are stopping to agree with the left.
Yeah, that's happening though, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's going to cause a crumble because it's just multiplying effect of, well, the opposite of division effect.
I was listening to Chris Williamson and he was saying that in the LGBTQ or the whole thing, that community.
Oh, get it right.
They've started like targeting gay, white, middle-aged men and saying that they're being suppressing the rest of the LGBT community.
Was that in his talk with Douglas Murray?
I think so.
Yeah, because he's a gay white middle-aged man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
But
he was saying that he felt like he was being offensive by being a gay white middle-aged man.
yeah. But we've seen like cracks in things like that already. Like you're going to see break-off groups from
Yeah.
other left-leaning ideologies.
So would you say you reckon this is the end of an era of left versus right? Because obviously that's not been around. That couldn't have been around for that long. The left and the right. I don't know where it got born from.
Isn't that just from modern day politics?
Yeah, it's probably just modern politics. Probably like a couple hundred years old.
Yeah, so it's not a sustainable, like, what is it, like an ideology? It's not really going to last forever. And I think we're coming to.
It depends if politics stays the same.
Yeah.
If politics changes, then the spectrum will change with it.
Well, it's like in China. I doubt you have a left and a right there. You have.
Well,
No, they have multiple parties, but it's always the Communist Party that wins, right?
Yeah.
you'll have people who have like left-leaning or right-leaning views and left-leaning views, but they probably won't even speak them because they don't want to speak against the party.
Yeah, I guess that's another box of. Well, I guess that's the way we're going to now, then. Anyway.
I mean, that's quite extreme way of thinking about it, though. I mean, that's quite extreme, China, to say that we're going towards that. I mean, to a certain extent, maybe, but we still have the choice of voting easily for the other party where we're not going to get in trouble.
Yeah. I'm more looking at it from a sense of. What I saw some meme, right, and a guy was like transitioned into a woman, and he was trying to breastfeed a baby, and
He was.
yeah, the she, you fucking,
Oh,
what the fuck. Yeah, so the guy that transitioned into a woman, that person, they then were trying to breastfeed a kid, and obviously the kid wasn't thingy, like getting nourishment from, because he's biologically a guy. And someone said, "Isn't this now classed as child abuse because you can't feed your child and you're trying to do it in that way where deep down you should know isn't nothing's going to come out?" And that person who said, I don't know who said it. I need to check this, but the person who said it's getting in loads of shit now because of what they said about that. So where I'm saying like it could go towards China is we're getting to a point now where we can't even talk the truth
Yeah, the censorship.
because it's considered offensive to this group of people when fucking a bit dodgy and it's a bit.
I know what you mean. I always see videos come up on like Reddit or something about exactly that point where somebody has an opposing opinion, but they get berated so much in the comments where they probably shouldn't, where they probably thought, oh, I shouldn't even have said anything in the first place. It's becoming an issue, actually. I see on every single like thread I go in, there's always one person that says their own opinion, doesn't follow the crowd, and they get absolutely annihilated for
and
it.
they're considered the devil, aren't they? Rather than no one's open for a debate or a discussion about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess that's what we're trying to do with the channel is say we don't know if even what we're saying is right. This is just our opinion. But if someone else has got a contradicting opinion, like discuss it with us. Don't like argue. Let's just talk. Like
Yeah, get rid of those like echo chambers. Like Twitter just seemed to ban anybody who has an opposing view to what Twitter believe, and it just turns into a massive echo chamber where everyone's just tweeting exactly the same nonsense or actual facts. I don't know, but nobody's having any like actual debates on there. Which
Did you?
Go on.
I was just completely bit of a side topic from this. Did you see that Kanye West bought? Is it Parler?
oh yeah, he bought social media up, didn't he?
What is bot? I didn't even look into it, but probably. But I just knew he bought it because there's something about free speech or some crap like that. I don't know.
I think it's like a Twitter alternative.
Ah, right. Okay.
There are social media at that. Yeah. Well, let's talk to you on the phone about Aaron. He's got one now. Elon's about to hopefully get Twitter. I say hopefully, but we still don't know what will happen once Elon gets it because it's a big amount of power to shift to him. And then Trump's obviously tried to do the truth. I don't know what the hell's been going on with that.
I heard someone say if Kanye takes Black Twitter to this new app, this new platform that he's bought, it was like Twitter's going to die.
So then Elon won't even win it.
The thing is with Kanye, he's a celebrity where he's got fans from the left and the right. So he's not really a polarizing figure. So he's going to get people on who have different opinions. So they'll actually talk to each other.
Yeah, that's really true, actually. Yeah.
Whereas I think if Elon buys Twitter, he's going to get loads of Elon fans. And that's it. Who agree with his political views or...
And same thing, exactly the same thing with Trump.
Yeah, with Trump, his is probably even more polarized than both platforms will. Kanye's and Elon's platforms will be.
How do you feel about these like big characters buying out these companies? How do you feel about that?
With Kanye's current, like what he's currently in the news for, and I know we shouldn't take the news as it comes, but I don't know if I'd put him in control of so much power.
Exactly, this is what I mean. Even Elon, like, there's obviously an ulterior motive for him doing this. I can't imagine it just being as straightforward as he wants to buy Twitter, so it's open to free speech. Definitely not. Can't imagine that. Obviously, he wants to push his businesses somehow.
A decentralized platform where sort of the community just take control of it.
Yeah. Community-led one.
I know, Tim Pool, he's starting to develop something. A decentralized platform, social media platform.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. I'll have a look into that. Interesting. All right. We are coming up to an hour. Has anyone else got any more points?
Yeah, we've gone off topic a bit, haven't we?
I don't know, it's not really a point. It's just one thing I liked. One of the systems that I mentioned, I don't know how to say it, the Iraqis system. Where there's peacetime leader.
As well.
There's a peacetime leader and a wartime leader. And the way he basically explained how they worked is, in times of peace, obviously the peacetime leader takes control of the community. And if there's war, then the wartime leader comes into force, takes control. But if there's any negotiations to happen with the enemy, the peacetime leader takes control and figures it out. And I thought that was such a good, like, way to look at how a community could be run. I never thought about, obviously, like modern day, you never think about, like, I don't know, a peaceful leader, going to war to negotiate something. It's always an ulterior motive with the army there trying to gain something, or the government trying to gain something. Whereas back then, it just made so much more sense.
Yeah, it would make sense today because, for example, you had Trump in power of America, yet he was good at negotiating deals. He was a businessman. So put him in charge of that, but then have someone else for the other side of it.
The thing is, like, a lot of these governments, though, they go into war with that same leader. So that leader is winning the war. There is no one else there that's against the war to negotiate it. It's always that same person trying to negotiate, but there's obviously an ulterior motive for them to even go into that war. Do you know what I mean? Okay, let's say...
Yeah, because I mean, like, if someone's in power, they've still got their different people, heads of security, state, and all this stuff. But it's all people they've picked to have on their team.
Exactly.
So
it's not like we elect two leaders to go into power, is there?
It's like with this Russia-Ukraine war. Like, we all know really it's just a war between Russia and NATO, but Ukraine's just the fighting ground.
They've got the shitty end of the stick, really.
Yeah. But there's no Western leaders there sort of pushing for negotiations. And then there's no one on Russia's side either pushing for negotiations. No one's having these peace talks. But if there was another leader next to Biden who's just as strong as the president, but not for the war, he could be like a bit of a. It's a
buffer.
balancing thing, isn't it?
Yeah, in a way. Yeah. But like we don't, like I said before, I don't elect two leaders to go into power. I feel like that's something, like you said, it needs to come from the government, where they need someone completely separate to the agendas that they have, and are all just about, I don't know, it's a bit simple to say peace, but for peace.
Yeah. Like, I think it would work, but to be fair, we've not been at war since, like, properly, since World War II. This is probably like the biggest
Yeah,
war on our doorstep since then.
yeah. I think, like he mentions, right, like war back then was on the doorstep. It was always right next to him. Whereas for us, it's sort of like around the world on the opposite side, and we're completely separated from it. So we
Yeah.
don't really think too much into it.
War for us really is just something we see on TV.
Exactly. I think the only reason why we've probably thought more about this war is, okay, yeah, we're older, but the fact that it's like literally next door to us, and it could come to our doorstep in a matter of, I don't know, like months, weeks, whatever.
Yeah, especially if it continues escalating the way it has been.
Yeah, it's been ridiculous lately. But then again, like half the stuff I read and like the news and different outlets on the web, how the hell do you know what's true and what's false?
Yeah. But I was reading something with a bit of a positive note, um,
Well,
that Putin probably won't use a nuke in Ukraine because of the fallout will drift into Russia.
somewhere we'll use it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Shall we bring it back to the book a bit?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Should we start wrapping up?
And tell you too.
Let me just finish on a quick point. So, I think it's in the first chapter where he says in the what do you call Native American societies, they had experienced no suicide at all. But in today's modern society, the suicide rate is as high as 25 cases per 100,000 people. And in the United States, middle-aged men currently have the highest rate at nearly 30 suicides per 100,000 people, which I thought was pretty mad, from having zero suicides at all to.
But I think he mentions that there was suicide, but it wasn't in the sense of what suicide is now, where it's more like psychological, mental health kind of issues. Back then, it was if you were a burden to others. So if you were ill, like really ill, and you didn't want other people to get after you, or if you're old, really old, that's when they'd commit suicide to stop being a burden.
So
So
not burden on the tribe.
yeah.
He
Whereas
mentioned
now
something
it's
about.
more
Oh, sorry.
psychological, isn't it? No,
He,
I was
men-
just saying. Whereas now it's completely psychological.
he mentioned something about less suicide within war, like people who are out in war, less suicide. But I looked into this a bit, like only slightly after it, and it's what they determine as suicide, because if you've hung yourself, that's suicide. If you shot yourself in the head, that's suicide. But if you're in an environment where you can easily probably the easiest way to sort of kill yourself is to be killed by someone else. So by walking into a dangerous zone on purpose, they won't not mark that down as suicide. They would mark it down as killed in
Like a war death.
Kill in action.
killed in action, yeah, something like that. So I don't know. That's why I'm struggling with the stats, because I know stats can sometimes be a bit misleading in terms of how they categorize things.
There's one thing on that as well, where he was saying that, I think it was World War Two, possibly World War One, I don't know which one. That hospitals in London psychiatric hospitals got less admissions when war was happening, whereas when it wasn't. But in my head, I was just thinking that's obvious, isn't it? Because there'll be loads of people going to war, and there'll be more people dying out there than dying at home.
Hmm. Unless they're saying the people that are actually going to war are the people that would, like, well, obviously saying are the people that would usually commit suicide over not feeling belongingness because they're out. It is hard to like read stats, I think, but
The way I thought about it is like, yeah, they're not committing suicide here, but like you said, they could just be going out there to get, well, not say get killed, but like what you said before, it could be killed in action instead of a suicide death. So regardless, there's still going to be like similar amount of deaths. It's just a different type.
well, he's obviously seen it from a different side, being a war journalist, so he might have seen something over there that made him feel this way. Obviously,
I think like if somebody who feels isolated is more likely to want to kill themselves than somebody who's in a war with people around them who are all fighting for the same reason.
and that's what he's saying throughout the book, right? Is that what does he say here? The beauty and tragedy of modern world is that it eliminates many situations that require people to demonstrate a commitment to the collective good. In a war, you are doing something as a team, which you think is to a collective good as a mission. It's like what they said, something about men's mental health I was looking into a while back, and it says men, they have to be doing something together, whether it be going out drinking, they have to be progressively doing something together. And it's like men, they'll go out and play pool or snooker and they'll get competitive in it because they progressively together want to get better at the thing. And it gets competitive, but they're both progressing to a collective good in a sense. But because alcoholism's such a big thing, men have sort of found that escape in let's progressively see how much we can drink together. Where men couldn't sit around the table and just talk, but women can do that. Men always need something to be working towards.
Some type of activity in a
Yeah,
sense.
some activity to do. I think I've read this before. Where women can just meet a friend and just for a talk, whereas men have to meet a friend to do something. Whether it's we'll go for a drink, or we'll go watch the football, or we'll go play pool, or we'll go play golf, or
Golf, yeah. Has to be an objective in mind.
There's another topic that whether you want to talk about the amount of war veterans that are claiming PTSD disability.
Oh yeah, a sort of
And
corruption, right? In
yeah, and basically like the fraud. Even he states it that there's probably a lot of people, those people that are just doing it for the money and they don't have PTSD. And there should be another way to I don't know whether he said there should be another way to distinguish if it is PTSD or it's something else. Or the
well,
fact that I think it's 50% of the veterans are claiming PTSD at the moment.
I took from it that there needs to be more than just a financial gain from it. There needs to be something
yeah,
in place, like to actually
because
benefit people.
I got from it like them paying them just because they've got PTSD makes them feel even more isolated and feel less part of society because they're actually being given money because they've been to war and now they've come back and now they're struggling.
And it makes them feel more segregated because, like,
Yeah.
oh, you've been to war, you need this money, whereas someone who hasn't been to war doesn't get the money. It makes them feel like, well, I don't. Well, obviously they'll take the money, but they'll be like, I don't actually want the money or want the discount on like restaurants.
That money they're
It's like-
giving them could go to better use in sort of
Yeah,
helping them fit back into society.
they've essentially just labeled them as this type of person, and it's put them in a small group. Well, I wouldn't say small; it's quite a lot of people, but it's put them into a group, hasn't it? When they're not with the mass majority. Like I said, isolating them.
Yeah. which obviously makes their PTSD even worse.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that what he says throughout the book, it's I think it's like what I said at the start. It's just a different way to look at PTSD as a whole. And it's a good viewpoint, I'd say. I don't think many people consider it that way, the way that he's put it forward. Whereas they probably should. It might solve a few issues.
That's what he wants to do. He wants to raise awareness. I think a sort of good route would. This is a good starting point. I think maybe looking out for another book which goes into a bit more depth on the topics he's talked about, and maybe bringing that book onto the book club as well as like a part 2 of this, because there's a lot more to find out about. Like we've discussed a lot, which is relevant to his book, but like we said at the beginning, there's a lot that he could have gone further into, which he chose not to. There'll be some experts out there which would have analysed some of the questions or queries that we have around how can this be fixed, basically. Is there?
Yeah, I think that will come with just reading a range of books and hearing other people's ideas and obviously just developing ourselves. Then we can think a bit more deeply about these kind of topics. So if we come across another book like this where it's sort of just to raise awareness about a certain thing, we can think of ideas from our past reading material
Yeah.
and bring it to the table.
Yeah, it's developing. Okay. Well, just before we wrap up, I'm going to ask you both a question. I'll start with Mitz. What would you rate the book out of 5, and why?
I'd say 3.5 to 4. Like, it's essentially what you just said then. It could have gone into way more depth. But I did like the fact where it was his own experiences, linking it to like tribes of the past or wars of the past or just different experiences from the past. He's tried to link it to modern day. And I think that's what I've liked about it. And it was an easy read, such a simple read. Like I went through it so quickly. It was fun to get through. But again, I feel like he could have gone into so much more detail about certain aspects of the book, where he cut it a tiny bit short, or I don't know. I just would have liked a bit more information on certain topics.
So I actually rated it when I finished it on Goodreads. Rated it a 4. Mainly because I was expecting a little bit more around sort of like ideas that can be brought to the table. But obviously, I had this conversation with you guys sort of changed my perception of the book, and it's more just about the awareness, which I think is fine. Like it's taught me a lot about things I never really thought about. I've never really thought about anybody with PTSD. I always knew it was a thing, but I just never thought, like, why did he have PTSD? Like, what causes it? Whereas this book sort of puts you in that situation and sort of helps you understand the causes of it and how society helps or doesn't help, which is something new that I've learned. But 4.
What about you, Cameron?
So I give it a 4 on Goodreads as well. But when I came to the end of the book, though, I was a bit like, it was a good book. It flowed well. It was easy, but I felt like I learned a lot because I learned an alternative side to PTSD, like as we've all discussed. But I felt like usually when I finish a book, definitely a non-fiction book, I feel a sense of like fulfillment or like it's filled something. But with coming to the end of this, I felt like I had more questions than I had answers. So,
Definitely.
What I thought for a book club book, I'd give it a 5 out of 5 because them questions we could discuss that we had coming off the book. But for an actual book to get information from, I'd probably say 3.5 to 4 because it didn't fill that hole of information that I needed.
Yeah, it's a very thought-provoking book, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Opposed to like, here the answers, go with it.
Hmm. Maybe it's because I'm used to them type of non-fiction books, so it's something new to me to actually.
Yeah, it's quite like thinking back. It's quite nice to have read a book like that that makes you think of ideas whilst you're reading it. Whereas a lot of books what I've read is sort of the ideas are given to you on a plate, whereas this one makes you think a bit deeper and lets you sort of come to your own sort of let your own thoughts flow rather than the author's thoughts.
Yeah, he didn't have many biases. He just had what he had, what he knew. He knew he wasn't an expert in the field, but he had sort of gained a certain amount of knowledge on the area, so he presented it to us. And
I think it's like you said, like it's there to raise awareness to certain aspects of community now and PTSD and certain things like that, where it should start conversation. It should start for other people to maybe develop some answers on PTSD or look at it a different way and maybe change the way that it's done.
yeah, be less judgmental on what you initially thought PTSD was.
Yeah.
All right, should we wrap this up, guys?
Yeah.
Sure. Mitz, it's been a pleasure having you on today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Nice one, Mitz.
Yeah, it's been fun. Enjoyed the conversation. It was a good book. Loved it.
Until next time, guys. Oh,
do you want to tell them what book we're reading, Cam?
Yeah, do you want to hit that?
You can tell them.
All right. So next month, we are reading Jordan Peterson's book, 12 Rules for Life. That will be our November read. We picked that book because obviously he's had a big impact on both mine and Aaron's life. So we'll be doing Jordan Peterson's book in November, his second book, and then in December we're going to be doing Jordan Peterson Beyond Order, which is the next 12 Rules of Life. We just thought it'd be good to get Jordan Peterson's books done by the end of this year, so we can start next year completely fresh-headed, but with the knowledge of Jordan Peterson's books inside our mind. So if you like to read along with us, then the link is in the description below. If not, head to alternative.co.uk or alt-alternative.co.uk. That'll be in the description below too. Thanks everyone. Bye.
Cheers. See you later.
Thank you.